Alright, welcome to this submission of Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater for AGDQ 2021. I'll be running this on European Extreme, New Game Plus. European Extreme is the highest difficulty you can play this on, with a forced condition of game over if discovered, which means if a guard sees me, I get greeted with a game over screen. I will be attempting to go for Foxhound, which is the highest rank you can earn by avoiding detections, kills, healing items, continues, as well as completing the game in less than 5 hours, which for this run estimate, it's going to be an hour 20 minutes, which is not for the scorecard, but the last shot against Ocelot in the plane, which is more or less a scripted, cutscene, which is the aftermath of the last boss fight of the run, which is against the boss herself. Time will start as soon as this loads in. Starting in 3, 2, 1, go! So, like I said, this is Metal Gear Solid 3. To be specific, this is the HD collection version of the game. I'll be running this on the PS3.
After the end of World War II, the world was
differences between the HD collection and the normal PlayStation 2 variants of Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater and Metal Gear Solid 3 Persistence is this is running on the remastered edition where the game engine is on a variable 60 frames per second, whereas the original game was on a 30 frames per second. And in addition, it carries over unique attributes such as being able to switch camera types. There is the original overhead view camera that you see here. I will be using this type for roughly 90% of the run. It's mainly out of preference for speedrunning the game, but it's actually better, frame-wise to use the original camera. You get better frames overall. The angles that are provided are actually helpful, with the exception of a few areas, just mainly for movement. The 360 camera is more or less a camera type that you would see in a game like Metal Gear Solid 4, which kind of surrounds you in all, more of a, not really an over-the-shoulder type, but the problem with the 360 camera is it makes you do more work where you have to move the camera together. The original camera kind of moves along with you. It's very similar to games like Metal Gear Solid 1 and Metal Gear Solid 2. And so, now that we acquired our backpack, and okay, so I guess that alligator was just kind of greeting me, giving me that little, good luck with the submission video with a tail swipe. Trust me, you do not want to mess with the alligators. He was just kind of reminding me, what not to do. Oh, man, but, okay, so we're now actually going to go up against guards now. We've dealt with our part against fighting nature. And very first thing we're going to do is deal with these 3 guards. First one, which I'm going to trank in the head very quickly. And the second one, I'm going to run up to them while tranking them in the back once, followed up with a roll. And what that will do is, like in Metal Gear Solid 2, if you tranquilize a guard once and then roll into them, it gives them an instant knockout, rather than having to wait for the tranquilizer to work on its own. And with that last guard, for whatever reason, whenever you go up close and you can bump through a guard and roll late, it's just some weird mechanic where Snake's rolling hitbox is wider than it appears, so he can roll very late and still make contact with the guard he's, running into. It'll be used quite a bit, as well as misdirect shots like this.
Come in, HQ.
This is HQ.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of new to the job, Now, the real thing that's happening there is certain guards' sightlines, whenever they're doing things like, certain patrols, when they scan their head, or if they're on the radio, they are just oblivious to what's going on around them. And we take advantage of that throughout the game. And so, we're now going to make our way into the compound. We're going to locate Sokolov, who is the VIP target that we're meant to exfiltrate with. So I'm going to do this very carefully timed roll, which was not very carefully timed, but I will definitely give that another try there. So again, do a quick headshot, followed by this double trank, which, again, you're seeing the use of the 360 camera there, just for, you know, line of sight preference. Okay, so there's the roll. You know, because again, you're taking advantage of the guard's behavior, where they won't necessarily spot you right away. There's a little bit of a delay, and as long as you're quick enough, you can actually, you know, do things like rolling through them late, rolling into them, so on and so forth. And, man, well, I mean, what happened here? I mean, you know, I was trying to explain what was going on, and, you know, I mean, there was like a party that happened that I wasn't invited to. But, you know, I'm sure they had fun. But that's going to conclude the virtuous mission portion of the game, which is more or less a tutorial. Just teaching you the basics of, you know, how to play the game, which includes this last part on, you know, healing your injuries, because, you know, in terms of what's happening in the plot, we figured out where Sokolov went. The boss shows up out of nowhere, kind of beats Snake up, you know, pretty bad. You know, it affects the Soviet Union, and, you know, lots of things happen after that. I know, right? Man, the boss defected to the Soviet Union? Oh my god! So, you're seeing the first use of the cure menu, which is only going to be used in certain parts. Some are required, others are just optional. And what you notice that I did there is during that, you know, healing, is I manually changed one of the injuries from cut to broken bone. You sustain 4 cut injuries and 2 broken bone or fracture types. The game will auto-select each one for you, but we navigate from broken bone to cut, so that in the menuing of our, you know, medical items, it's more efficient to just swap one to the other, while the remaining injuries just only use bandages and splints. It's just a minor optimization that people found out over the years of just running the game. Because, like movement, menus that you do are very important. Because unlike games, you know, in MGS1 and 2, whenever you pause the game, the timer would stop. Whereas in this game, whenever you hit the start button, it doesn't really pause the game, but it brings you into a menu where, you know, or a menu hub, I guess would be more correct, where it gives you access to your backpack, your camouflages, your cure menu, the food menu. But before we get into any of that, this is going to be the first demonstration of why these grenades are so helpful without having to use them. So, after that very carefully timed roll and movement, you're going to see me hold this stun grenade up in the air without actually throwing it. And so, for some reason, cooking grenades while walking on certain surfaces will silence your footsteps entirely to the guards. Which is weird because you as the player can hear it, but the guards are just completely oblivious to what's going on, as is the common theme. Next, we're going to do this very carefully timed roll, followed by a secondary. We're going to wait half a second, and then make our way across the rope bridge. And that double roll is very specific, because we're trying to time ourselves to be in a blind spot behind a tree as the guard is turning his head to scan the room in his patrol. And waiting half a second is a safety buffer in the event that you're not leaving too early. Versus a more optimal method of rolling onto the rope bridge rather than waiting. It will save you about half a second if you execute it correctly. However, it is very scary to do that, because if you attempt the roll and miss, yeah, you could guess it. Snake would be going for a swim again. You know, I mean, we don't want a repeat of what happened in Virtuous Mission. He got beat up pretty bad. So now, we're going to equip what I consider to be the most important accessory in any speedrun of this game, the cardboard box. More than just for the memes and the swag points, the cardboard box actually has essential qualities that are needed for running this game. and those will be explained as they are used. And now this is going to be the first mini-boss encounter, which is against the Ocelot unit. So the very first thing we're going to do is equip the items that we'll need through not only this fight, but throughout the rest of the run. So we're equipping the brown face paint camo, which is not only for camouflage index, but mainly its benefit is to slow the O2 gauge drop rate. So for swimming, it is very helpful to have that. And of course, equipping that box. And you notice I unequipped the survival knife and the D-mic.
Oh my god!
I know, oh my god, I got rid of the D-mic. So, I'm equipping the MK22 tranquilizer since Eva provided us a new one after the boss. Or actually, no, she provided the MK22 along with the M19 lethal pistol after the boss dismantled ours at the start of Snake Eater. The Patriot is a New Game Plus carryover item just for beating the game once, regardless of rank. And of course, the stun grenades, because again, they're useful. So, very first thing we're going to do is trank this guard outside, anywhere but the head. You know, because shooting these guards in a specific way is important. So we're going to knock out that second one. Trank the third one in the body, like the first one, while rolling over those boxes very carefully. Throw a stun into the next room. And then knocking on that wall is going to make the remaining guards in that room turn to face the grenade I just threw. While at the same time, sniping a guard. Or rather the sniper, which is probably the worst one out of the 10 because he has the vantage point where you'll get caught the most. Next, we're going to trank that guard off screen, and then that one's just going to pass on his own. Sometimes they pass up before I get up to them. It depends on where they were hit. But you might be wondering, well, wait a minute. How did you just headshot a guard off screen without having to go in first person? Well, the interesting thing about this game is that there are certain terrains that are advantageous to you as the player because the level height of Snake's aiming, or like aiming level plane, if you would, will match the same height as the guard's head. It is not consistent. It is very dependent on the area that you're in, as well as, you know, your position relative to the guards themselves. So there'll be moments when that will be taken advantage of. So we're going to go through the swamp, and you'll see the demonstration of why the brown face paint is helpful for swimming. And it's only draining not because of the swimming itself, but we actually have a leech that kind of latched onto my leg. And one of the ways to avoid getting leeches is to use a bug spray accessory that is available to you after the Ocelot unit fight, but we're going to do it the old-fashioned way. Use a cigar, burn it off. Why is that? Well, it's actually not efficient to acquire the bug spray, menu it in, and use it when you're only going to use it once. And the cigar is faster to menu to it just to get rid of one leech. Because by leaving the leech in, it'll drain your stamina over time, and stamina, like the health bar, is essential. Alright, so this is Bolshaya Pass South. The room is very time sensitive, so I'm going to focus for parts of this. Because for every room you load, it's on a very sensitive patrol timer where the margin of error is very small. So I'm going to shoot, or I shot through that fence line, which is going to make a dog bark, mainly to distract one of 3 guards over to where that shot took place. Next, we're going to use the cardboard box to distract a second guard over, while rolling through this fence very specifically, and then rolling through to go through this opening in the fence line here. And it's very important to roll through that fence at that time when the guard says, "Who was that?" Because as the guards are standing by in their patrol, they're actually scanning their heads left to right. And timing that roll on that dialogue is meant to avoid a third guard who was remaining by stationary, but he's scanning his head. But very nicely done. And we now make our way into the next boss encounter, which is going to be up against the leader of the Ocelot unit, Ocelot himself. And I did not hug the wall enough there. Yeah, so sometimes it's very easy to get caught there. Because what happened was, if I'm not hugging against the wall a certain way, my camo index will not favor me. So we're just gonna go ahead and try that again. So we're gonna make our way to that guard in the corner. Do a trank roll. Now we hug the wall. And then roll our way into the next area. And you noticed I unequipped the tranquilizer, or the suppressor to the tranquilizer, because we're trying to preserve those. So we're gonna start by shooting Ocelot in the back, throwing our first of 2 stun nades. Then we're gonna follow up with another headshot, a second stun, but slightly off to the side. Then we're gonna turn around so we don't get blinded each time. Use the M19 to kill the goat. Okay, then we're gonna shoot him. 3rd time, 4th time. And there you go. So what happened there is we kind of put Ocelot into a loop where we don't want him to move. And so each stun that you do not only does stamina damage, but it blinds him temporarily, keeps him in place. Shooting the goat, while sad, is meant to distract him where he focuses his attention. You'll notice when you saw the red exclamation point because he's reacting to the fact that you just killed the goat in the background. I know, I'm already seeing it now where it's, you know, people are saying, man, that goat died for this run. I'm calling Peter right now. I got him on the line. And I'll say, you know what? I did this in the name of this AGDQ submission. You know, that goat will be missed. But the whole idea is to just loop Ocelot, keep him still. And you'll notice that at times his unit will kick in by trying to fire at me. It causes a distraction for Ocelot, allowing me to get a headshot in with a auto-aim body shot, which is just enough to actually end the fight. So we're making our way through the caverns now, where we're going to be going up against the next boss in the game, who I personally feel like is one of the hardest ones to deal with early, who is going to be the Pain. But before we do so, we're going to equip the grenade and smoke grenade, which both are going to be needed for this fight. So again, like Ocelot, this is going to be very focus intensive, so I'll kind of explain it as best I can. So first thing we're going to do is throw that smoke at the start while trying to get these headshots in on the Pain. And the Pain's head hitbox is probably one of the worst things about him. You know, because it's not as you would think it is. It's actually from... It's actually from the chin to the nose. It's not from the chin to the forehead. So the hitbox is deceptively small. And you notice that I'm using smokes and regular grenades against him, which is meant for not only removing the B armor, but rather it holds him in place, particularly with this grenade. And you notice that as I was firing, I was doing a 1 and then 1-2. And that's just a shooting method that will give you the most damage, you know, like per second. Where every time the Pain gets shot in the head, he kind of staggers back. And as his, you know, as he recovers from being shot, you're squeezing in another 2 hits, which every hit that you do will add up. Like, his iframes are not very long. However, it is important to get those headshots because the tranquilizer does the most damage to the head. It will not do a whole lot to the body or anywhere else. But here you're seeing the use of the box when I'm going up inclines. Because one of the things is that whenever you go up inclines normally, Snake will slow down. And one of the ways to overcome that is to roll up. Where, unfortunately, rolling up inclines repeatedly is not really efficient. You slow down every time you do it. And using the cardboard box bypasses that incline because, again, for whatever reason, Snake's movement speed when going up and down hills while equipping the box doesn't really have a slow speed. They just Never programmed it in. So we're gonna avoid these 3 hovercraft by swimming through this river while hugging this wall very specifically. And again, you're seeing the use of the brown face paint camo. My O2 for swimming is draining very slowly. Normally you would have to breathe by surfacing once for air, but by having this face paint, you can just swim from one end to the other without having to pause. Alright, and just like that, we now made it through. So here's a fun trick for clearing these docks, and also another boss who is there. So we're gonna start by tranquilizing this guard and then shooting this barrel and that barrel over there. Now, for those that have played this game casually, you can actually kill the end here early, provided that you acquired the SVD sniper rifle before you entered this area. But instead, what we're gonna do is use the barrels to hurt him early, as part of that damage that he sustained will carry over when we fight him later. And at the same time, the barrels will kill every other guard at the same time. So it's kind of a 2-for-1 deal. So this is the warehouse, which, again, I'm just gonna focus for part of it. So we're gonna execute a very careful roll there.
What happened?
Freeze.
Yeah, figured I was gonna get caught. So, unfortunately, I didn't get that first roll right. So, we're gonna try that again. But basically what I'm trying to do is do that late roll tactic that I did at the beginning of the game, but I'm applying it to this staircase here. So, first roll late, go up the stairs with the box, because again, you know, since it's on an incline, the box doesn't really slow you down. Okay, so interestingly enough, I did not body bump into him. So, we're gonna try this one more time. You know, the warehouse is definitely one of the hardest places to maintain your Foxhound rank if you still have it by this time.
What happened?
Alright, so one more time. You know, because, I mean, this is where part of the run estimate is, considering is rooms like this. You know, it cannot be explained, like, how difficult this really is. Alright, so late roll once, twice, and a third time, and I still didn't hit him. Huh. Alright. Alright, so first roll over the railing. Roll into the guard, late. Up the first step. Roll late. Up the second step. And roll into the third guard. So again, you're seeing the use of why the cardboard box is useful for going up either stairs or inclines. Your speed does not slow down. While at the same time, the rolling late tactic, which is where the guard will slightly notice you for a moment, and then you can bump, you know, into them by running through them. Rolling late, the rolling hitbox is very generous. K1, thank you for the 7 months. Welcome back to the Joe Stars, and yes, that guard was very inconsistent. Okay, so we're gonna make our way into the lab. Where we're gonna meet up with a weapons developer named Granin, who is gonna give us not only info on, you know, where Sokolov is being held at, but he's also gonna give us a key to actually get into the forest section later in the run. So we're going to sneak in very delicately, which is nothing more than just standing straight up and just running in. So we're gonna wait for not this pillar, but this second pillar. We're gonna swap out of our face paint to a face mask of somebody who looks very familiar, while equipping the scientist uniform that Eva provided to us earlier. Let's see. Okay, actually, I think that was a split, but I'll just let that go. So because I wore the scientist outfit while being outside, they just think, you know, I'm trying to run away, even though I was technically trying to enter the lab.
Huh? What do you think you're doing?
Oh, what am I doing? I'm doing AGDQ submissions. I don't think they got the memo. But again, since I'm a scientist, they aren't really alerted to me as long as I don't do anything, you know, obvious for, like, suspicious behavior. They'll just ignore me.
What do you think you're doing?
Even though I'm just bumping into them.
What do you think you're doing?
But bumping into that scientist at the end of that lab there is important because unlike the guards who are pretty oblivious to what's going on, they just think the scientists all look the same apparently. But the scientists are the ones that actually can distinguish you from the others. So before they actually notice you, they'll squint and like lower their head down. And so bumping into them will just kind of delay that process. And then using that box at the end of that, you know, cubicle area is meant to get around a scientist whose seat gives them line of sight as you exit. So even though the scientists can tell you apart from the others, but they can't really tell who you are when you're in a box. I mean, heck, I'm running the game and even I can't tell who's in there with the box on.
Huh? Huh? Hey!
Yeah, he's just saying hello. So we're gonna swap out of the scientist uniform into the animal's camo, which is normally acquired when you beat Ocelot non-lethally. Like the other Cobra unit bosses, if you beat them non-lethally, not only are you trying to sustain the Foxhound rank requirements of no kills, but you're rewarded with a uniform camouflage type that has special abilities. And in this case, the animal's camo gives you steady aim regardless of your stamina level. Because normally when your stamina level falls below 50%, you get this like weapon sway. And it gets progressively worse the lower your stamina is. And so the animal's camo negates the stamina bar. It means you don't have to feed yourself to regain stamina back. You don't have to do things to recover any of it. Which means you don't have to hunt for food. You don't have to collect things like instant noodles and calorie mates. And we're going to do this throughout a significant portion of the game. And now we're up against the next boss who is kind of tricky on how to deal with them. So we're just going to die. Yeah, we're just going to make him think, man, that poison worked faster than I thought it would. But in actuality, we're just tricking him.
He wasn't dead after all.
So we lured him in. We're going to throw a stun, turn around, equip the Patriot, and then just light him up. And no, they were not rubber rounds, but the funny thing is, if the Fear gets stunned, any damage you do to him, regardless of the source, will be treated as stamina damage. Which is why, in New Game Plus, the Patriot is used. It's the easiest way to deal with him. The Feign Death Pill just lures him in. He's, you know, very gullible to think you really died, even though you didn't. And at the very end there, I cured the poison. Since the first crossbow he fired at me was, you know, filled with poison. So, we're making our return trip into the warehouse, and I'm gonna kind of focus and explain what's happening second.
What's wrong?
Okay.
What's that box?
Good question. What is that box? So, here's what happened in that entire room. So, at the very beginning, I had the box equipped, which is meant to distract a guard that's one level below you to make him look forward and investigate a box that he thinks he saw. While at the same time, I roll over a ledge at a specific spot to fall on top of another guard that's patrolling below to knock him out instantly. And then the third guard was, again, taking advantage of that height level plane, where I could aim forward without having to go in first person, getting an instant headshot. And the fourth guard was using the delayed roll maneuver, which I'm going to use again here, but in a slightly different way, which I'm going to roll early, making this guard fall over and to the left. while firing off a misdirect round to the right, making that guard huddle over to that tree, and again using the stun grenade while held in the air to silence my steps. Okay, so again, we're just gonna shrink. Uh-huh. Okay, that is interesting. I don't think I've ever had it happen like that before, so you could definitely add another mark to the, you know, never happened before scoreboard. But we'll do this again. So again, I'm just using the box to maintain my speed. And then we're gonna roll into this guard instead of late. We're doing it early, which is meant to make them fall over a specific way.
The enemy's here.
Do that same misdirect shot to distract that guard. Hold the grenade in the air so he doesn't hear my steps. Okay, that's better. So now we're gonna shoot and roll into this guard. Oh my goodness, I missed completely that time. You know, sometimes it's the shots that are up close that are the hardest to make, not the ones that are, you know, shooting across the level. So I do kind of, you know, amaze myself at times, like how easy it is to miss those, you know, basic ones. So, roll into this guy, falls left, shoot the corner.
The enemy's here.
I sneak on by him, which is funny that I even used that word despite what I'm doing, but I am sneaking by them. Okay, over the log. Shoot and roll. Okay. And again, we're unequipping the suppressor and the weapon as we enter into the next fight of the run, which is up against the end. Now, normally the end can be done in a few different ways. There was an old looping method, which involved using a smoke grenade to cover your approach, but we're not going to do any of that. So the very first thing we're going to do is shoot the end, who is right here where that lens scope is. Where you can see it flickering in the distance. And you also notice that I left the arrow in my leg, like, after I finished the fight with the fear. And that's just part of a setup for this fight specifically. So we're gonna punch buffer 6 times, so that was 4, 5, 6. And we do this to buy ourselves time to let the end leave the level, throw a smoke at that tree, fire off a volley of Patriot rounds at that wall there, which is meant to make noise, and if I did this right, it's gonna make the end reappear because of the loud noise. So we're gonna punch him twice, 6 spray, punch him twice again, and then hold him up.
Where did you...
So during that whole thing, he didn't really know I was there, and punching him was meant to reset his hitbox without making him fall over. So then we throw a smoke, cough once, use another 6 spray, throw a stun, look up in the air so I don't get blinded. Then we're gonna 6 spray once, twice. He's gonna get up and run this way, so I'm gonna stop and turn. 6 spray again, 1, 2, and a third 6 spray to finish. So what just happened there is regarded as the new end loop. The old end loop required you to use a smoke to cover your approach, and you would go through a set of loading zones and then eventually sneak up behind the end who's still aiming at you at the very beginning. Instead of doing that, we use this revised hybrid loop, which involves part of the old loop while using the leaving the arrow in the leg. And, you know, you might be wondering, well, what does the arrow have to do with all of that? So for some reason, if you leave the arrow in the leg when you enter that room for the first time, the N will be laying down when he's aiming at you at that spot on the ledge. Versus when you remove the arrow, he is still on that same ledge spawn location, but he is crouched. And it is essential that you leave the arrow in if you do that end loop strategy, otherwise it will not work. So now we're up to the, you know, hidden mini-boss of the run, which is the world's tallest ladder. So while it sings to us, we're just gonna take a breather. Hey, what's up, Empire Bob and Ron Snore?
I'm searching and I'm melting to you.
Yo, Bearish, thank you for the 8 months. Just in time for the ladder. Man, you bet. I mean, this is the best part of this game. The entire speed run. I mean, when people think of Metal Gear, they think of this. I mean, there is no other game out there that has a ladder like this, I'll tell you. I know, Lazad. I know. Yo, thank you for following. You know, I don't know if I can climb this ladder myself, but something tells me when you get to the other side of this ladder, you do come out as a different person. You know, you kind of realize, you know, that nothing can stop you. You can really push yourself to accomplish great things. And just like that, we just beat the mini-boss ladder. It will be missed. Okay, so we're now in the mountains, where, again, we're using this animal's camo not only because of our lack of stamina, but it actually provides good index for your camouflage. So we're gonna set this up very specifically by using the box to go up and down these little, like, pits, while rolling through here very specifically in this line. And we're rolling repeatedly here so that the guards that are patrolling nearby will not hear my steps up until when I do this. Again, using that Sig Spray gives you that instant knockout as soon as they're hit by it. And using the box to make my way out. So, very nicely done there. That room is also very hard to do. Followed by this one, which we're just gonna fire off around there, which, funny enough, the game will kind of auto-aim at certain points for you, depending on where you are. So that off-screen headshot was just due to the fact that a guard is in a position where Snake will just aim to them, or at least try to aim to center a mass, which in this case happens to, you know, hit that guy's head. And again, this is just another key thing of using the box here. There's lots of inclines here. And so using the box maintains your speed regardless of the terrain. Because normally if Snake is running up and down, you slow down. And then of course the box allows you to do something like this.
What's this box?
You know, I sometimes worry about that guard. You know, I think he's delirious. You know, maybe it's because we're high in the air, and there's low oxygen, and, you know, it's just kind of getting to that guy. But because you use the box and go around a corner, you know, they're just kind of like, what's this box doing here? And same with this guy. You know, so we just use that as a delayed roll tactic. Now comes the mountaintop, which this is probably the hardest area of the three in the mountains. So we're going to start off by doing this very carefully timed roll while unequipping the suppressor of my pistol. Fire off a round as soon as I see that red door. Roll up these two ledges, or try to. Then we're going to hug this right line. Okay, unfortunately, I didn't really hug the right line enough because that guard that patrols that trench has a really unfavorable field of vision there. So we're gonna try it again. So we're gonna go up this ledge, roll off at the last minute, fire off around as soon as I see the red door, which is gonna make another guard go on the radio. Roll up this ledge. Okay, hug the right line. Alright, so I'm gonna try to do a backup strat since I was late. So I'm just gonna fire off a round there. You know, just to kind of momentarily distract him and then trank him. Normally, if you were efficient on your ledge climbs, you would not have to do any of that. you could just roll on through to that exit point, because what you're doing is you're creating a misdirect to cause a guard to go on the radio, and like the very beginning of the game, sometimes when they're on that radio, they're just kind of unaware of what's going on, so you're using that radio broadcast as a timer to actually get up here, and it lets a guard, you know, remain where he is, and giving you the opportunity to actually make your way through undetected. So, we're now making our way back down the mountains. You know, we met up with Eva. She gave us a key to go through a door, which was locked on the way up here. So, this time around, we're going to be really crafty how we get through this. So, we're going to roll up this ledge twice. And then we're just going to drop down here once, twice, and through the door. I know, simple, right? So, we're going into the underground tunnel system, who we're now gonna go up against what I consider to be the absolute most random and chaotic boss fight in the game. Now, the pain is difficult just because of his head hitbox nature, but the Fury, on the other hand, has his own uniqueness on why he is the way he is. You know, this is where my Foxhound runs go to die had I not have lost it prior to this. So, he's gonna fly overhead and say if I'm ready for this. So we're gonna let him see me in the box to bait out an attack. Next, we're gonna use the Mosinagant, which we got from beating the end non-lethally earlier. Fire 3 rounds into the Fury. He's gonna bait out another attack while he tries to power his jetpack. Bait him out for an attack a third time. Thus ending the fight. So the Mosinagant does the most damage per second. It is a very powerful rifle against not only him, but for another fight later. And that fight outcome is ideal. The Fury is random every time you attempt that fight, because every time he flies over at the beginning, he'll land in a different place every time. You want him to land right of, you know, the camera screen. If he lands left, the baiting method is not as effective, and you will have to improvise another way to basically loop him. And so what you're doing there is you're trying to bait out an attack, which is followed up with a jetpack charge, which leaves him open. So that was the best Fury fight I could hope for right there. Because, like I said, I've lost Foxhound ranks to this. Other runners that run this game dread that fight for the same reason. So, we're now in Groznygrad, which we're going to be using another crafty way of getting in, which is simply trinking a guard and going into the box and, you know, just pretend like I'm part of the place. Yeah, I mean, because clearly there's nothing going on here. Because again, when guards are focused on a guard that's lying on the ground unconscious, they just lose all awareness of where you are. Alright, so I'm going to throw a smoke here, which is going to be part of a very intricate setup. Shooting a guard off screen, like so. And then make my way up to Rykov, who should be right here, and... oh, I didn't grab him. Alright, so I'm trying to get a hold of Rykov to get his uniform so I can actually infiltrate this place. So we're going to try that again. So we're going to run up to right here, throw the smoke. At the base of the stairs, hit a guard on the right. Go up the stairs. And then grab him, like so.
This is HQ. What's going on?
We're under enemy fire. Enemy position is unknown. Going into alert formation.
Acknowledged. Sending reinforcements. Use extra caution.
Alright. So that method of, you know, acquiring Rykov's outfit is the risky version of trying to get to him. Ideally, the easier way would be to use the scientist outfit, as it will make you blend in, but the problem is, when you're in the scientist outfit, you cannot use weapons, you cannot use CQC, maneuvers. So that method of using the smoke and firing off the gun is relatively new. It is faster to do it that way because you drag them faster while in CQC than it would be to, let's say, knock them out with either, you know, CQC, tranquilizer, whatever, and then dragging their body. As well as it saves you the menuing time of having to equip, you know, the scientist uniform. So even though it looks like I look like Rykov, I'm dressed like Rykov, and I have an arrow in my leg,
Sir.
to them, it's just any other day. They say, "Oh, nice to see you again, Major Rykov. Oh, that's a nice arrow you have in your leg, sir." I mean, like I said, if a box with legs can go through Grazigrad, I mean, surely Rykov can go about his business with an arrow in his leg without any suspicion. But, unfortunately, Volga didn't fall for it, and we're now captured.
Stop it!
Who have you been talking to?
He doesn't know what you're
I've been talking to Twitch chat.
You'd better start talking.
Please, stop this!
Who is Khrushchev's lapdog?
How can you do this to him?
I know you gave the data to someone.
Never do
You!
that. You monster.
I guess he's dead.
Yeah, so Sokolov, yeah, he kind of had a nice chat with Volgan. Didn't really end too well, but this forced cutscene is just part of the run. It gives you a moment to kind of relax, go to the restroom, get a drink of water.
I hope you'll prove more.
You know, Volgan's just gonna talk to us and, you know, a bunch of other stuff.
But first, let's take a look at your body, shall we?
And telling us, you know, about our body.
What a beautiful body you have. Like a newborn baby.
Oh, thank you, Volgan. Uh-oh.
Not for long.
I did not like the sound of that.
Well then, let's get started.
Hey, what's up, nurse?
What is your target? Is it the Shagohod? Or Sokolov? Or maybe it's the Legacy? Answer me! Who is helping you? Who let you in here?
Oh, well, that's a very easy answer, Volgan. I mean, ask the two guards out front.
One.
They let me in.
Even you must have your limits. And I am a patient man.
All right, so we've been captured, injured. We lost an eye through a very unfortunate incident. So we're gonna bust our way out of here, which is gonna be through a unique method of using a fork, because we lost our stuff. So we're gonna remove the feigned death pill and the transmitter that Ocelot put in, while at the same time we're just gonna go for a spin. 4, 5, we're gonna do this 11 times. 8, 9, 10, 11. So spinning around like this is gonna make Snake feel dizzy, and
What's wrong? Are you okay? Oh, jeez. Did you throw up?
yeah, you know, Johnny, I just wasn't feeling good, and haha! So, the vomit method is the optimal approach to get out. There are different ways to escape, which is either using the frequency of the cell, using your codec. You can use the feigned death pill to pretend that you died and have Johnny open the cell for you, but they're not as quick. So, next we're gonna use those noodles that we got from Johnny while throwing them to distract a guard while using the smokes while held up to try to escape, but sadly I did not let them go at the right time. So we're gonna throw them again, run to the left, hold the smoke up in the air. Let's see, unequip them, and then crawl through the opening. So again, you're seeing the use of the silent footsteps with the grenades. It doesn't matter which type of grenade it is, but for whatever reason, as you run, it just silences your steps, which makes that room a lot easier to get out from. So we're just going to continue to go left, go through this door, and now we're going to be using the smoke grenades for real this time, not just only to silence our steps. So the first thing we got to do here is once we get to this line here, is going to throw a smoke right there. It's going to create a distraction while covering my approach as I hold the smokes up in the air, silencing my steps, throwing a second one at that dog, which is going to disrupt its sense of smell. And while they're trying to figure out what the heck is happening, I'm just making my way out through this opening here. And just like that, we're out of Grazigrad. That method of escaping is not necessarily anything different over the years, but at full house, it just kind of just gives that good demonstration of just, you know, like how you can just trick the guards. So because this is a speed run, we don't have time to go down the stairs. We're just gonna drop down and, you know, it may look like Snake injured himself. I mean, he's already kind of beat up now, but, you know, he's running at full speed as if he didn't really, you know, sprain his ankle when he dropped down. And we're just gonna make our way out of the sewers. Which is gonna be up against truly the hardest fight in the game, and I'm not even kidding. It's harder than the Pain. It's harder than the Fury, even though he's random. I mean, I'm not even trying to hype this up for anything. I mean, the Sorrow is definitely one boss not to be messed with lightly. And I will show you why that is. So, gonna make our way out of the sewers and go up against the Sorrow. So, we're just gonna start swimming. You know, and just let Snake die because, you know, you can't come after me if I'm dead. Considering the Sorrow is already dead. And because this segment isn't really real, we're just gonna revive ourselves. That method is the most common way to skip that fight. The optimal method, which is very menu precise, where if you equip the grenade from your menu and throw it, it is actually faster by a second over the drowning approach. But for the most part, the drowning is the simplest to do. But the grenades, even though it is a dream segment, they are available to you in your inventory. You just have to equip them and use them as soon as you load in. And I believe that grenade method was discovered by... Let's see, I'm trying to think. Well, I think it was Raichu that... I don't know if he discovered it, but I believe he used it in the, you know, AGDQ 2019 in his run. But I think it was also found out that, yes, not only is your inventory available to you while in that segment, versus when you're in Grazigrad where your inventory is not available. But it was also found out recently that during that Sorrow segment by Major Zero, the speedrunner, not the actual Major Zero in-game, but speedrunner by Major Zero has found out that the in-game clock for the run actually pauses when you're in that Sorrow segment. So regardless of what you do, the in-game clock does not advance. And you could spend all your time in there and not lose any in-game time. However, for RTA purposes, we're just gonna stick with skipping the fight. You know, it takes way too long. You gotta dodge some, like, spirit waves or whatever thing he shoots at us. And, you know, if you actually killed any guards, they show up in there. As well as the, you know, bosses you beat up to along the way. So we're just gonna take the faster approach. Okay, so we're just gonna set up what we're gonna need going back into Groznygrad because we clearly did not have enough fun with it the first time around. We picked up box B, which is gonna be used for getting into the Shagohod hangar using a familiar method in other games of, you know, truck warping. And I'm equipping the sneaking suit, which is another New Game Plus item, which is normally acquired on the second visit to Groznygrad, which is this section. Instead, you have to make your way to the weapons lab where, you know, you snatch Rykov. But before I get into that, we're just gonna use the box like so to distract that guard to move left, and then just make my way there. I mean, I just walked in front of the guy, and he just paid no attention to me. You know, because it's only another day in Groznygrad when you just see a box moving around. So, here's the truck. Gonna make our way in, re-equip it, and because it's a box B, it has a label on the side which is labeled as Weapons Lab Main Wing. There is another one which is for Weapons Lab East Wing, which is where we were at previously to not only snatch Rykov's outfit, but the locker where Rykov is stored, you know, as you leave the first time, when you revisit it the second time during this section, you will find the sneaking suit inside, which is used, which I use it for defensive values, where it cuts damage down in half, while at the same time it minimizes injuries you can sustain, so it's a very useful item. Unfortunately, for a new game run, you do have to go out of your way to get it, but for New Game Plus, it is very helpful to have. So, we're tasked with planting 4 C3s by these fuel canister tanks, and you notice that I shot a round off to the wall as a ricochet. It's meant to panic the guards, while at the same time, I'm using the box to not only just for flair, but the maintenance crew in there don't really care if they see a box with legs. I mean, like the scientists, they figured, you know what? There's stranger things that happen in this space, so why should a moving box be one of them? Okay, so now we're going up against Volgin. So I'm gonna focus for part of this. Okay, so Volgin, while his electric field is down, he's very vulnerable to CQC. So we grab and throw him down to the ground to kind of set up a buffer to start damaging him with the SPD. And then we're using it again here, because not only does it do the most damage per second, but for some reason, whenever he does his, like, wide explosion attack, there is a moment where you can follow it up with a few shots to get some hits in, and he staggers after 4 shots, and his cooldown between iframes is relatively short. So you're basically stun-locking Volgin to death, literally. And you might be thinking, well, wait a minute, you just killed Volgin. That would bypass the Foxhound requirements, even though I technically lost it already. But you might be thinking, well, wait a minute, isn't the whole idea to beat these bosses non-lethally? Well, the game for once actually sees it your way, because the argument is, well, wait a minute, I mean, I didn't really kill Volgin because he's still up and about. He's using the Shagohod to chase us, so why should it count as a kill? So, regardless of how you beat Volgin, it will not count as a kill otherwise. However, if you do beat Volgin non-lethally, you will gain the Cold War camouflage, which is New Game Plus accessible, which is used for sections like this, if need be, where it will block shots from happening while facing front to guards, since it has the Soviet Union emblem on it, with the USA flag on the back. But again, for this bike escape, I'm just going to be sticking with the sneaking suit. The gunfire that they do to me here is not as severe, and with the sneaking suit, for 50% damage reduction, it's fairly manageable. Now, normally you would see people use stun grenades for sections like this, since you do have infinite ammo for everything. I just prefer to use the Mosin Nagant, just to spare myself the, you know, screen flashes every, like, you know, 2 seconds.
Snake, behind you!
And while this is kind of treated as an auto-scroller, we are trying to do some damage to the Shagohod early. Even though it's only chipping a little bit away at a time, but we're trying to do as much damage as preparation for when we fight the Shagohod later, because like the end, damage you do ahead of time does carry over. So we're trying to aim for this, like, rectangular section in the middle, or this chassis, because the Shagohod is heavily armored, with the exception of that center weak spot. And so, I know most people, when they think of stuff like this, it kind of drags out, but one of the reasons why I like the Bike Escape, it kind of gives me a break from, you know, the stealth aspects of the run. You don't have to worry about alerts, you're just making some carefully timed shots, you know, so it's kind of a, you know, a little bit of a change of pace, but... So what we're gonna do here is use the barrels, like I did earlier at the docks, to kill those guards and those guards using the SPD. Now, like the ones on the docks, when the barrel blows up with the guard next to it, the game does not see it as a direct kill, it's an environmental kill, so you kind of get away with murder, so to speak. And I'm gonna use it again here, while trying to trank these others. And you notice that every time I fire, I'm equipping and unequipping the Mosin, because the Mosin Nagant is a bolt-action sniper rifle, and the equip-unequip bypasses the reloading sequence. Because not only does it refill your magazine to full each time, but you just skip the reloading. Now, I know I said that the sneaking suit gives you defensive benefit, but RPGs do a lot of damage, regardless of having the sneaking suit equipped, but more importantly, you don't want to get hit by the RPGs because it actually lags the game for every time they fire a round off and it hits the ground and it, you know, spreads dirt around, and it just slows your game down, because anytime your game lags, it does add it to the IGT. So you want to do things to minimize any kind of in-game lag, whether if it's aiming the camera down, or there's even methods where you could just look up at the sky, because it was found out again, I believe by Major Zero, that if you either aim the camera at the sky or on the ground, you're not rendering, you know, the game's background in place, so you're not really losing any, like, in-game FPS, where you would just get, like, you know, it's not even that, like, the game FPS drops severely, but they're just little bits of, like, slow frame drops that are noticeable when you actually time it. And the reason why I shoot out the passengers for those motorcycles is so that since the passengers carry the Scorpion SMGs, they do the most damage. The drivers try to use their pistols against you. Not only do they not do a lot of damage, but they're very inaccurate since they're trying to drive and use the pistol. Okay, and then this has got to be like a fan favorite coming up here, which is going to be using all the RPGs I have on me to do the most damage to the Shagohod as I can. And Vogan, he's got a lot to say here. So apparently he thought I was wasting my ammo. He didn't feel a thing if that's all I could manage, but other than just for the spectacle of spamming RPG rounds into him, it's actually meant to, you know, do some preemptive damage. So every damage you can get away with there will benefit later. And we have to shoot out these 4C3 to, you know, get the Shagohod on top of it, which... Yes, I did just no-scope that last C3, because, I mean, it's Snake. He can do anything. But, yeah, you can just shoot all 3 at the start and then just wait to blow up the 4th one right as it goes over it. So you notice that when I fight the Shagohod here, it's lost, you know, roughly a third of its HP, and that's because of all the damage I was doing leading up to this. So, I'm trading shots between the treads to temporarily disable it, while also aiming at the back, which is its weak point. And if you time it just right, you can get away with multiple hits in the back rather than just one. Okay, so unfortunately I didn't really get the right kind of, you know, timing there, so I'm just gonna settle for one hit. Now, the Shagohod itself isn't really random here exactly, but rather Eva's driving, which, again, like the Fury, when people run this category, they dread this part. You know, not because of what the Shagohod does, but Eva sometimes will, let's say, make the not-so-right turn at the not-so-right time. But that was actually a really decent Phase 1. Now we're on to Phase 2, where Volgin himself is now piloting the Shagohod directly, since the power source was damaged during the fight. So we're gonna start by shooting the treads to disable it again. Aim at the head with the Mosin. And then we're gonna trade hits between hitting Volgin in the head with the Mosin and hitting the tread with the RPG, which is meant to drop his guard. Because if he's facing directly at us, he'll deflect any shots made at him. And then that rinse and repeat method is basically the, you know, the most convenient way to deal with him. So, nicely done there. And now we're back to the bike escape. Which is funny because even though, I mean, Volgin's gone, I mean, they're still out to get me with a vengeance here. Oh, dude, I just shot one of those flyers. Okay, I usually just do that for fun, but I didn't think that was actually going to hit it. So, yeah, let's just add that up to the swag points, since, again, I've lost Foxhound a long time ago.
There they are. Don't let them get away.
So, like the runway, we're just going to shoot the passengers only. Leave the drivers as they are, because unlike the runway, we're not really doing this to minimize damage loss, but rather, in this particular situation, no more than 3 bikes can spawn here. So as long as you don't take out any of the drivers here, they will not spawn any more bikes. And again, they'll try to use the pistol. Will hardly do any damage to really do anything about it. It was actually a method for optimizing, I believe it was the very easy category. You know, being the, you know, leaving the drivers up.
You're not going anywhere. Stop that.
Alright, so just clear out the guards at the roadblock there. Then we got a second one, which, like in the base, we need to get this guy with the RPG out. Okay, so unfortunately I missed, but you can already see why getting those RPGs are important, not really because of the damage, but just, you know, how much it lags the game, even though it was brief. Alright, this section. This is probably the one that I personally despise the most above anything else. Because these guys in these, like, flying, like, hovercrafts, they do a lot of damage. They can hover above your head. They just spawn, you know, relentlessly. I mean, they just don't run out of them, apparently. And they can also crash into you, just like that. So really just, you know, take them out as you see them. And even with the sneaking suit, they do some significant damage. And then here you got this guy flying above my head. It's just a weird thing with the game. I don't know why they thought it was a good idea to do this, but... Again, just keep taking them out. Alright, so we got another obstacle, which is shooting this log, which we're gonna take out with the SPD. I think casually, most people would take it out with the RPG. But in this case, you could either use that or the SPD, doesn't really matter. And we just enjoy the view. You know, for them flying over my head, they're not very good at avoiding those mountains. I don't know, I just always do that for fun because, you know, I hate that section so much, and just to see them crash into the wall like that just brings a smile to my face and tells me that it was worth it. Oh, nice, I actually got that one. So, this is the last section of the bike escape. I know it kind of seems like it drags on, but I do like it at times, just as a relatively... you know, somewhat of an enjoying section to not worry about alerts for once. You can also practice your no-scope shots. You know, because in case people ever ask, well, how can you no-scope these guys so well? It's because of practicing sections like this a lot. Oh, nice, I got them. Alright, so here we go. Last set of guards here. Before we make the big jump.
Here comes our jump. Hold on. Yeah. What do you think of that?
You know, Eva, I don't think I've seen a better jump than that. She is definitely brave for executing that jump, I'll tell you that much. Alright, so now we're done with the bike escape finally. We're on to the end game, which we're tasked with the following. So we're gonna rearrange our inventory for what we're gonna need to get through this forest section, as well as fighting the boss later. So we're gonna be equipping only the tranquilizer pistol, Mosin Nagant, and the stun grenades. Next, we're gonna feed Eva some noodles
Some more.
at the start, which was discovered by Raichu MGS, that if you feed Eva early, she will sustain the amount of stamina needed throughout this entire escort. Now, you only need to heal Eva's injuries in order to advance, but I'm healing Snake's injuries just as a precaution. You know, never know what's going to happen exactly, but ideally, you would just, you know, rearrange your inventory, feed Eva the noodles, heal her injuries, and then just move on. Because ideally, since Snake's stamina is at full at this point, his injuries will heal over time, which is why it's better off to heal Eva first, and only Eva. But for safety, I'm just gonna, you know, heal all the injuries. You know, I'll lose a few seconds just having to do the extra steps, but, you know, better safe than sorry. So, we're being chased by more of the guards, so we're just gonna make our way forward, giving myself and Eva a head start. And I'm trying to be very peculiar on how I get Eva to move, because I only move as fast as she can. I can't really run ahead of her, or she'll lose sight of me and then stop moving. I also have to be very careful of trees and other obstacles, because she'll walk around them. So you want to try to get her to walk a straight, direct line as much as possible. And just like that, we're out of the first section, so nothing too special there. Okay, and then with this second half of this forest, we have guards to deal with now, because they're no longer chasing us. They're actually in the area that we're going through this time. So, a few things. We're going to trank this guard first. This guard next. Okay, move forward a little bit more. We're going to trank that guard. And that guard. And then this guard last. There's actually a different way of handling this room entirely. It involves leaving those two alone, let them patrol forward, and then, you know, using a really suspicious object to kind of create a distraction. Of course, I'll demonstrate what that is just for fun. Got this little, like, Keraton statuette, so when you fire at it... Yeah, so ideally you let those two patrol forward, you shoot the Keraton, they look at it because of the noise. You know, it just saves you an extra 2 guards to trank, which at the same time slows their patrol to arrive in this next area, which I will kick that plant to create noise on a guard that's located below me, while at the same time I'm going to be tranking Phase 3 guards, 2 out in the open, 1 in the brush of grass there. And with that, that's all the guards I gotta deal with throughout the rest of the game. And now we go up against the final boss fight, which is against the boss. Usually at this point is where Eva starts complaining about, like, she's hungry and wants more food again. Sorry, Eva, but you're only getting 1 noodles. Because that other pack of noodles is mine. But that's the benefit for feeding her early, is that it gives you just enough to get through the whole thing without having to feed her twice. Okay, the boss. So, first thing, we're going to counter her CQC with our own, timing it when she grabs me. Then we're going to hit her in the head once, twice with the Mosin, throw her down with CQC, throw our first of 2 stun nades in the air, turn around so we're not blinded, let her rub her eyes for a moment, hit her once, twice in the head again, throw her down again, throw the stun in the air a second and final time. It'll only work twice. Then you let her rub her eyes again, hit her once, twice, throw down, shoot her in the head this time. Then we're gonna roll once, turn around, then she'll charge. Counter her CQC by holding the circle CQC button as she grabs me. Then we're gonna shoot her once, twice, CQC, and that's the boss fight, which demonstrates the boss loop, which it is very, very, very easy to mess up. Because here's what's happening, is you're basically countering her CQC charges, returning fire with 2 of your rounds to the head with a stun, which doesn't exceed her 3-hit hitbox to reset her. So the stuns kind of keep the loop going, and the stuns only work twice and will not work 3 times. And so when you do the final shot, it keeps this loop where she'll charge you a second time if you did it right, and then you counter her CQC, fire twice, and if you did enough damage to the head, a final slam is enough. Sometimes if you hit her in the arm or in the body instead of the head, you'll have a little bit of sliver left over.
Or should I say,
But that was nicely done.
you're a wonderful man.
But now,
Kill me. Kill me now. Do it.
we gotta do the thing that most people don't want to do, but we gotta do it anyway.
There's only room for one boss and one snake.
It had to be done. It's like, I didn't want to do it. Alright, so time's gonna be coming up when I fired the 6th and final round of the revolver, which has the, you know, the dead round. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and time. So, the funny thing about that sequence is if you pick the left revolver, it's always the one with the loaded bullet, and there's actually 4, like, alternate endings to how that encounter can end. If you have the loaded pistol and fire it at him, it's a dud round. If he has the loaded pistol and fires at you, it's also a dud round. If you have the loaded pistol but do not shoot, Ocelot will just question, oh, well, why didn't you fire? And then there's a 4th one, which is you have the loaded round, and on the 6th shot, you actually aim away from him and miss, and you'll see a ricochet, and he just laughs at you for missing. But that is the run, with a time of 1:20:06, which is just 6 seconds over my estimate of 1 hour 20 minutes. It falls within what I thought this run was going to be. There's lots of areas for mistakes to happen. Rooms are difficult, some boss fights can definitely turn bad, but overall, fairly happy with this submission. But before I wrap things up here, shoutouts to the Metal Gear Speedrunners community. So shoutouts MGS3, thank you so much for doing what you do and motivate others to run the game. Shoutouts to Apache Smash for helping me get better at this game. Personally, just from the beginning up to the Fury. And as well as every other runner that runs MGS3, regardless of the difficulty or category, just showing more love and appreciation to a game that's loved by many. But either way, that is it for Metal Gear Solid 3. Thank you for watching, as well as thank you to the reviewer considering this for AGDQ 2021. And I look forward to seeing this game get made again. But until next time, thank you once again, and enjoy your day.